Assembly passed a bill last night.
Hey,
So now we got to keep the heat on the Senate. Right. And what we're getting cute. I'll pass it off to Rob.
What do we want?
wrongful conviction.
When do we want it?
Now. Wrongful. Now. Shut it down. Shut it down.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
My name is Roger Clark, and I'm a leader with Wrongful, New York. Last night, the Assembly took the courageous action of passing the Challenging Wrongful Conviction Act. Let's give them a hand of applause.
Yo.
This bill will save lives. It will free innocent people from prison and help us make our community whole, but only if the Senate follow through. So there is a caveat. You know, there's still more than enough time for the Senate to actually pass this bill and give it over to the governor for the governor to sign it, so that individuals who are in prison wrongfully, who don't belong in there because they never committed a crime, they will have the tools that they need to challenge their conviction. Today, we are here to demand that the Senate also pass this bill. I want to ask Senate Majority Leader Andrea Cussin if she can hear me, what she think of this bill, and if she will pass it before the end of session. It is not okay for the legislature to end this session without passing this critical legislation. That would send a clear message that the Senate is okay with a criminal legal system that allow people who are innocent to languish in jail for years. And that's not right. As New Yorkers, we cannot tolerate this. New Yorkers should not have New York should have a faith system that refuses people who are wrongfully convicted. New York is one of the worst states for wrongful conviction. It is so easy to be wrongfully convicted and so hard to get exonerated. Let's be clear, the Assembly is doing its part. We need the Senate to take act, or the Senate Democrat really going to go down in history as the party who want innocent people in prison. That is crazy.
Right.
You know, so I'm calling upon the Senate today, this morning, to please pass the Challenging Wrongful Conviction Act.
Yes.
And some of the lawmakers are a little bit confused with clean slate and with wrongful conviction. They have this vision that it does the same thing, and we are fully in support of clean slate and wrongful conviction, but it is two completely separate, different bills. One is asking them to clear the record of individuals who's been in jail and who came home, to give them an opportunity for them to be able to get housing, to be able to get jobs. The Clean Slate Act, our bill, is a tool for innocent people to get out of jail. This is nothing else. It's simply for individuals who did not commit no crime, who is charged with a crime or convicted and in prison, for them to be able to be released. So without further ado, let me call my first thing. Mr. Dan Court, you can bring your Assembly members with you.
As Roger accurately said, last night the Assembly took the courageous but accurate step of passing this piece of legislation. A couple of my colleagues, I know David Weprin will be here soon, as well as Harvey Epstein was here. And at the last press conference, so many of my colleagues have voted in the affirmative. Now, it's not the time to pat ourselves on the back, not that anyone at Vocal ever does. We keep working, but it's now we have 2-3 days left of session to get the Senate to act. It's a nice first step that we passed this in the Assembly. but for those wrongfully convicted, for those whose family lives, individual lives have been destroyed by a criminal penal system in New York run amok, this bill, amongst others, is critical to righting those wrongs. I want to thank Roger for coming to me with this bill so many years ago, and to Wrongful, who I may have been on the floor, but I wasn't on the floor alone last night. Wrongful was with me in spirit when we passed this bill. We only have a couple days left. We need to do everything to pass it in the Senate. I spoke with Zelmer Myrie. I know he's working hard on it, but we have to help him help us, and I know that we will, working together.
That's right, because we know that this system that we have is simply not right. There was a quote from somebody that I received that justice have to have the appearance of justice. You know, it has to have the appearance of justice. You cannot be locking people up and throwing away the keys without giving them a fair opportunity for them to seek relief. Well, especially those who claim that they are innocent of the charges in which they are charged for. Then we find out 20, 30 years later that they was innocent all along. So without further ado, let me call up my comrade from Boca, New York, Nick Perry.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank God, and I want to thank all the folks, and I want to thank all the organizations and the coalition that have backed these bills when it comes to this issue of wrongful conviction. You know, this is about that time I want to really spend Assemblyman. And for those who've done it, hopefully the Senate will have the same kind of courage and have some faith in the system once again for our people. We've lost faith in this system. This is not the only bill, but there are so many other bills that would probably bring our communities back to a point where we have some faith in the system. Me, myself, I was wrongfully convicted in 1988. It can happen to anyone. It's one of my favorite statements this brother here talks about. I happened to be working on Wall Street for many years, working in an area that was condensed in 1988. There was a big war against crack and drugs. Brothers were getting picked off the street like it was water. I happened to be in that situation. I'm not bitter or resentful. I'm just bringing you truth. I'm bringing you spirit and truth. That's all I talk about. You can give me all your beliefs. I'm not trying to hear it. The truth is that many of us brothers were in the system. When I went in there were so many black brothers in there that didn't even understand why they were there. Couldn't believe they were there. I'm talking about people that were lawyers, doctors, saying because the system had decided that we need to go to jail. We were a point, and we were just on the basis of our color of our skin. This is real, And I came up through a system that I believed in. My family told me you got in contact with the police, you must have did something. There was no truth to that. You took that whole belief from my whole system. I had a belief in the system. I went to a criminal justice college. Came to Wall Street, thought that this was all good. So I know it can happen to anybody. To all those of you who are around, it can happen to anybody. And the only thing I gotta say further than I'm not bitter. I got back everything I lost. I lost my family, my car, my bank account, and everything else. But you know what? To this day, I got a wife, I got a car, I got a home. So it didn't kill me. I'm resilient. So I know where I'm at, but I happen to be blessed. We all gotta get blessed like that. We all deserve that. We didn't do anything that was wrong. All I gotta say is when it comes to leadership can dictate the culture, and you came to the party, you came here to dictate the culture. So the Democratic Party, I'm not really a partisan person, but you have an opportunity to reverse the culture of this criminal justice reform. So right now, step up and do what you gotta do, get some courage. You will have the community, you will have the faith in the community, and I guarantee you, Boca will be behind you 100%.
Mr. Neal, he said something that was true. He said that thanks God he's alive and he made it through, but there are a lot of others who simply is not okay. You know, some people have died in jail while they've been innocent of the charges that they've been accused of. So let me bring up this other brother, a brother that I truly respect. He is formerly was wrongfully convicted of a crime, you know, and he was able to clear his name. Now he's a lawyer. He's from the It Could Happen to You campaign, Mr. Jeff Deskovitz.
My name is Jeffrey Deskovic. I spent 16 years in prison in New York State, wrongfully imprisoned for a murder and rape, which I did not commit. I was in prison from age 17 to 32 prior to being exonerated through DNA testing that identified the actual perpetrator. I'm an advocate now. I'm the founder of the Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation for Justice. We've been able to free 11 wrongfully convicted people, help pass 3 laws aimed at preventing wrongful conviction, and I'm part of a bigger coalition group, which Roger alluded to, the It Could Happen to You Coalition, where I'm an advisory board member of, and the foundation is part of that. So the Challenging Wrongful Convictions Act speaks to me in a number of ways. So firstly, it will open the door to people to be exonerated who are wrongfully imprisoned. That obviously speaks to me. When I was wrongfully incarcerated, when my appeals were over, I was no longer provided with an attorney. When your appeals are over, the only way back into court is if you can find some previously unknown evidence of innocence, which probably would have led to a different outcome, or if there's a change in the law. So when my appeals were over and I was no longer provided an attorney, I had to write letters looking for someone to take my case pro bono because I didn't have any money to hire an attorney. I wrote letters for 4 years right before I wound up getting an organization to take on my case. So that's the first thing that I want to mention to you. No, it should not depend on nonprofit organizations to take cases pro bono. It should not depend on law firms or individual lawyers to work pro bono. First and foremost, this is an obligation of the state to do the right thing. Secondly, as an attorney now, at my organization, the Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation for Justice, we do work to free wrongfully convicted people. One of my clients, Omar Clark, who I recently won a ruling for in the first case where I, as an attorney, where I did my first oral argument. So he was wrongfully convicted in a case where, as an innocent person, he took a guilty plea. One of the provisions, an important one, of the Challenging Wrongful Convictions Act is that under current case law, anybody who pleads guilty is not able to argue actual innocence.
That's not right.
We know that innocent people losing faith in the system, losing faith in their attorneys, with little investigation, fear of being convicted and being given a greater sentence, we know that they often plead guilty. My client, Omar Clark, faced 25 years. He was incarcerated pre-trial detention between 6 to 8 months. He kept telling his lawyer where the key witness was. He kept asking him to do investigation. The lawyer never interviewed the witness, never did any other investigation, and kept telling Omar, you're going to lose the trial and get 25 years. Why don't you instead take this 7-year plea bargain? And on the day that the trial was supposed to start, that's exactly what Omar did. Since then, co-counsel and myself entered the case. We found quite a bit of evidence of his innocence. And so in arguing his case in front of the court, rather than being able to argue that he was actually innocent, rather than being able to argue we have newly discovered evidence, we instead were relegated to arguing that he received ineffective assistance of counsel and that the prior attorney did not do adequate pre-trial investigation. That's the hoops that we had to jump through. We shouldn't have to jump through hoops like that. We should be able to just directly argue actual innocence and newly discovered evidence. So that portion of the bill speaks to me, seeing that as an example in that case. The last point that I want to make is that as a result of the system being like it is right now, in which no attorneys are provided for indigent defendants, my foundation has had to turn away many cases where we felt that the defendant, the applicant, was innocent. But the problem was that because they were not provided with an attorney by the state and being impatient and not finding anyone to take their case and being desperate, they ended up filing pro se motions. The court will not allow us to now re-argue the same issues that they already previously argued inaccurately. So again, providing an attorney is another aspect of the Challenging Wrongful Convictions Act that speaks to me because it would prevent that situation. At the end of the day, guilt and innocence are what's supposed to matter the most. And we should not have a system that does not provide an attorney for poor people in order to try to prove their innocence. We should not have a system that refuses to hear evidence of innocence. And we should not have a system that allows convictions to remain on people's record, impacting their ability to get jobs, housing, voting, and in almost unlimited number of fashions. So that aspect of the bill also speaks to me. Anyone that's been convicted of a crime that subsequently is not illegal anymore, they shouldn't still continue to have that on their record and impact them. So for all those reasons, I'm calling on the Senate to pass the Challenging Wrongful Convictions Act. The time is now. We're halfway there. Do you really want to be the body that fell short? So we have to start all over again next session. The time is always right to do what is right. Pass the Challenging Wrongful Convictions Act now. Pass the Challenging Wrongful Convictions Act now. Pass the Challenging Wrongful Convictions Act now. Pass the Challenging Wrongful Convictions Act now.
Now.
Thank
No
you.
justice, no peace.
That's right. Mr. Escovitch is right. This bill it creates a number of ways for individuals to get back into court. There will be appointed an attorney that will get their fair day in court, and that is what is needed right now. Because, like he stated, there's a lot of people in jail. There's a lot of people like me who don't completed my time. Who I want to see I want to see my conviction reversed. Up to this day. So we must pass this bill now. Without further ado, let me call up the next person from It Could Happen to You, Mr. Tom Hoffman, who is an attorney as well.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Great to see young and not so young people trying to do what is right. I thought about the fact that, of course, there are an estimated 20 to 50,000 innocent people in prison today because they were wrongfully convicted. I don't call these wrongful convictions. If I put a gun to someone's brain and pull the trigger, that is not a wrongful shooting, that is a murder.
Yeah.
So I was wondering why there were 20 to 50,000 innocent people, and last year across the country, there were 150 exonerations. That's less than 1%. That's basically 0%. Why is that happening? And the truth of the matter is, and I am sorry to say, the system is rigged, the fix is in, and the dice are loaded. The judges who hear these cases are former prosecutors from the same office that the prosecutor appears before him or her. The judge is on a first-name basis with the prosecutor. The defendant comes in a post-conviction, has no attorney, and is up against these educated prosecutors, many of them, I am sorry to say, cheat and lie. That's why wrongful convictions occur. So while the prosecutor, if they should lose, has a right to appeal, the defendant has no right to appeal.
That's not right.
I am sorry, but the system is rigged.
Right.
And this bill will help at least level the playing field. So I think to stop these murders, and they are murders, we may not see blood, but they are murders just the same, this bill must be passed to prevent these horrific injustices that occur. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks a lot for that, Mr. Tom Hoffman. It's true what he's saying, like the prosecutors A lot of them, some of them are racially motivated. Some of them are simply just bad human beings in position of power, taking people liberty, and without no type of scrutiny nor supervision. So this is why somebody could go in jail, somebody innocent, and go in there and spend years in there for crimes that they did not commit. Yeah. Look at what the former racist homicide detective in Brooklyn did. Yes, Scarcella. He over and over and over again used one black female who used drugs over and over again to solve homicide cases. And she always was there to see who committed the murder. And it wasn't until a good defense attorney came that was able to answer the right question and flesh out all of the things that she did, is that when she broke down and said, yes, he's the one who showed me the picture. The police officer showed me the picture and told me to say he's the one who did it. So this is something that we're bringing up. In Long Island, there was a district attorney who convicted like 5 or 6 black dudes that looked like me. And all of them, all of it, they found that he manipulated evidence, he lied, he did a whole bunch of stuff, and they had to throw all of those convictions out, and he didn't even get arrested. All they did was throw him out, and now he's a defense lawyer. But now, I could go over and over again, but I'm not. Let me get this elected official, Mr. David Rutherford, to the stand. Thanks.
I assume you all know the Assembly passed the bill last night. Now we have to get the Senate to pass it and Governor Hochul to sign it.
Right.
I'm David Weprin. I chair the Corrections Committee in the Assembly. And wrongful convictions must stop.
Yes. That's right.
I'm honored to be a co-prime sponsor of the bill that passed last night. Let me share something with all of you. Did you know that New York State ranks 3rd in the nation in the number of wrongful convictions?
That ain't right.
Isn't that ridiculous?
Yes.
I don't understand it. That alone should force us to take a closer look at our correction system. Even more troubling is that almost 98% of felony cases in New York State do not go to trial. I'm going to repeat that number. 98% of felony cases in New York State do not go to trial. They end with a plea agreement. As the law stands now, those who plead guilty are almost entirely barred from challenging their convictions, even in the face of overwhelming evidence contradicting their guilty plea. My colleagues, we must empower innocent people to challenge their convictions.
That's right.
I believe the Wrongful Conviction Act will do that. How can we ask people to trust our justice system when we make the process of challenging a wrongful conviction so exhausting and grueling? New Yorkers deserve better, and we must restore their trust.
That's right.
Our formerly incarcerated population faces incredible challenges in returning to society. I know that as chair of the Corrections Committee. For the wrongfully convicted, there must be a legal recourse. We cannot allow the law to stand unchanged, preventing people from clearing their names. I am standing with all of you because I am proud to support the Wrongful Conviction Act. And hopefully the state Senate will pass the bill in the next day or two, and Governor Hochul will do the right thing by New Yorkers and sign it into law. Thank you.
What do we want? Justice. 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 When do we want it? Now. Thank you. Now let me call up Sergio de la Pava from New York Defender Services. Sergio.
Thank you. My name is Sergio Del Palo. I'm the legal director of New York County Defender Services, Public Defender Office in New York. I have a couple of why questions that I think are important. Why is this passage of this bill so important? You'll hear because New York is third in the country in wrongful convictions. Why is New York third in the country in wrongful convictions is the better, deeper question that comes to the urgency of this bill. I can tell you, as someone who's operated in New York's criminal justice system as a public defender for more than a quarter century, we have to look at the sins of the past to answer that question. For decades, this state had a guilty plea machine that was operating at peak efficiencies. Poor people were held in jail because they couldn't afford to pay cash. Those same poor people were taking pleas without seeing a stitch of police paperwork because of our outdated discovery rules. Now, yes, we've scored some victories recently on those fronts. Our bail laws are better today. Our discovery rules are better. But we cannot just blindly refuse to look at the past and the sea of people who were convicted under that unjust system, wrongfully convicted. The work of the Innocence Project and others establishes conclusively innocent people plead guilty. Innocent people falsely confess to crimes they did not commit. Those people are now sitting in our state prisons, and they are counting on us to get this done this week, not next year. Every day someone spends incarcerated on a wrongful conviction is an atrocity for our system. Let's wake up in a couple days knowing we did everything in our power to get this done. Thank you to everybody here who has done so much, but we're so close to the finish line. Let's get over it today.
All right, let me get Mr. Harvey Epstein.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. So I feel like we've been here a lot. We talk about the atrocities within our criminal justice system. Time after time after time, we see black and brown people arrested, incarcerated, convicted. Higher rates than white people. We see wrongful convictions for black and brown people at a higher rate than we see for white people. Why do we continue to see these problems in our criminal justice system? Talk about systemic inequality. We need to talk about racism. We need to talk about classism. And underlying these issues are bills that fix these problems. Ending the limitations that people currently have to challenge a wrongful conviction is critical. Because while people can argue things are better now with our better discovery rules, they are not better for people who are locked behind the walls. Their lives are still suffering. Their communities and their families are suffering. And if someone, even one person, can be released because of a wrongful conviction, because of a law that we need to change, it is our obligation to do this. It is our responsibility to do this. And I know we don't have a lot of time. And I know, as someone working really hard, not just on this bill, but on so many criminal justice reform bills. But it's important to raise our voices every day to say the system's wrong, and we have an obligation to fix it, and passing this bill will do that. I stand with you. I'll continue to come back until we get this done. Thank you.
We are not judged by our intentions.
Yeah, thank you for that. We almost there. We gotta get it done this week. It's only 24 hours.
That's right.
2 more days. All right, let me get 48. You get 48. Let's get Mrs. Candy Johnson down.
Let's go, Candy.
with us. My name is Candy Johnson. I go by the alias Solitary Survivor because I was in Rikers Island for 1,168 days, and out of 1,168 days, I spent 1,122 in solitary confinement. I might sound like a broken record to most of you who heard me before, but I'm the voice for those that are inside and those that were wrongfully convicted that are afraid to speak. But I'm not afraid to speak. I'm not afraid to speak. As I said, I spent over 3 consecutive years in solitary confinement, and while I was in there, I was sexually assaulted by the officers. I had a captain put his fingers in my anus or during a visit, and he refused a visit. They were refused my visits. They were refused showers. They were refused my hour of rec. And the only time they would let me go to rec when it was super hot, or when it was super cold, or when it was storming rain. I say that because I was tortured all those years, and as a way of getting out, I was going to plead guilty. After 2.5 years, I was going to plead guilty just to get out, and they were offering me time served or 25 to life. So once I heard 25 to life, I was afraid, and I was going to plead guilty just to go home. But a jailhouse attorney, let me rewind and tell you the difference between a jailhouse attorney and a
public defender.
Public defender. A public defender. A public defender is there for your jailhouse. For the crime that you committed to get incarcerated. And a jailhouse attorney is there for your civil rights while you're inside, such as recreation, shower, rec, telephone. So the jailhouse attorney had told me she cannot help me with my case, but she can help me with jailhouse cases. And she suggested that if I was not guilty, not to plead guilty. So I went back in my cell and I thought about what she said, and I didn't plead guilty, and I took it to trial and I was found not guilty. But I say all that to say that just because someone pleads guilty doesn't mean they're guilty. And just because someone is found guilty doesn't mean that they're guilty. Thank you so much for listening to me.
You're not broken. Not broken.
All right, those are such powerful speech, Gary. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, let's get to the clear now.
Yeah.
Listen, there's so many people who are sadly wrongfully convicted, and I've heard people say, well, why did they plead guilty? Why did they say they did it, right? If you know this process, if you know what people have gone through,
That's right.
If you know what it is to be kept from your family, to be hungry and kept awake and not being able to sleep, and someone promising you, if you say this, we'll just let you go. If you know what it is to be in jail waiting for your trial date and to get out, and someone say, well, if you just say you did this, you could go home, time served, and you would know why people said, I'm guilty or I did it. And too many people have been corralled into that unfortunate situation.
Happened to me.
And that ain't right. And we have to really pay attention to that because it is torture, it's terrorism at the highest level. To do that to people, to corner them. I remember in my district where I lived, where I grew up, where I was raised, years ago, they corralled more than 3 dozen.
That's right.
Young men. Behind the horrible event that took place in Central Park.
Oh, yeah.
But there was political pressure to blame someone. We had to find somebody. And unfortunately, it was 5 young people who wound up taking the weight for something that they didn't even do. I am so sorry. And that's unfortunate because we can never give them those years back.
That's right.
We can't give their families their lives back. It's not just the individuals that do time, their families do time with them, their mothers, their fathers.
so many events happen. So yes, maybe later on, and it took years for them to get so-called compensation, but that's not worth it. It's not worth it. We cannot wrongfully convict people. We have to take justice seriously as punishing people for when they're guilty, making sure that we don't punish the innocent and we don't wrongfully convict the innocent. So I say yes, we need to end wrongful convictions.
That's right.
That's right. No justice, no peace.
That's right. You can't have peace without justice. And justice is about ending what you're doing and stopping it. Stop doing it. It's not enough just to say we're sorry. We have to stop doing it. We have to correct it. And we know that this is a problem that affects Black communities, non-white communities. It also affects white communities, but it disproportionately affects our communities. It just adds to all of the other social ills and barriers that we have already. So we have to make sure that we keep on bringing attention to this. I applaud each and every one of you, and that's why I ran over here today. Assembly member for your work, all the assembly members, thank you for what you're doing, because we got to keep this issue going. It doesn't matter how long it takes. We're going to get it done, and I am with you. I am with you every single day, every step of the way. The assembly member reminds me that it passed in the assembly, and now we got to get it to pass in the Senate. You know, this is what we have to do. We have to push and push. But I'm not going to quit. I'm still fighting for it.
Thank you. All right. Senator, I need you to tell your people in the Senate to pass this bill. Pass this bill.
Pass this bill. Pass this bill. Pass this bill. Pass this bill.
Pass this bill.
Yeah, thank you so much for that powerful speak. It's so true. And like I said at the beginning, justice has to have the appearance of justice. You know, you cannot simply be throwing people in jail randomly, especially people who don't deserve to be. You know, if you want to hold accountable those who commit crimes, you have to do an investigation, and you have to double check and triple check to make sure that you're not penalizing somebody who does not deserve to be penalized. And with that, I'm going to call up our last speaker, and her name is Arlene.
That's correct. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for coming. My name is Eileen Marr, and I'm a woman who is and was formerly incarcerated in New York City and state. I'm a civil rights leader with Vocal New York and a social worker. First, I'd like to thank the State Assembly for passing the wrongful conviction bill late last night. So now we need the State Senate to pass the wrongful conviction bill before the session closes this week. When passed, the wrongful conviction bill will not only allow those convicted of a state crime by jury or bench trial to have their cases reevaluated by a new judge and legal staff, it will allow those individuals who, despite being innocent, pled guilty to a crime and either are or have served time in prison or jail. And this happens much more often than you think it does. It happened to me. Initially, I had poor legal representation, and I was detained on Rikers Island for over 420 days. When I pled guilty to something that I should not have pled guilty to, and then went to state prison just so I could return home in the quickest possible way. My physical and mental health was deteriorating at a rapid rate, and my family and friends needed me. Had I not pled guilty, I would have either had a trial scheduled indefinitely and delayed whenever that happened, and when it did happen, the judge promised that if I lost, he would sentence me to 15 years. That's not right.
And I'm not the only person who encountered and were facing sentences such as these for either alleged crimes they did not commit or even just low-level misdemeanors where the charges were trumped up. Human beings were being detained not only for crimes but for mental health issues, defense of themselves in domestic violence situations, and defense of a third party. People who, as I mentioned earlier, were simply defending themselves during one or more a series of domestic violence attacks after local police and health services providers failed them and their families.
There are thousands of us. A policy and practice that specifically targets people of color, poor people, and those living in underserved neighborhoods and communities. It's racism and classism. My comrades and I are begging the Senate to pass this Wrongful Conviction Act. We cannot, as a society, morally, and as a human race, allow any innocent individual to remain incarcerated and carry a yoke of a wrongful conviction around their neck. This is not just one person's fight or even 5 or 10. This is a bill for all of New Yorkers. End the torture and do the right thing, the moral thing, and please pass this Wrongful Conviction Act today. Thank you.
Do the right thing.
Do the right thing. Do the right thing. Do the right thing.
Do the right thing.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
We can live free.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Well, this will conclude today's news conference on wrongful conviction. Now, I would like for us to go to the World Conference and over here, and let's make some noise. Let's let them know that we're here and to pass the challenging wrongful conviction act.
Listen, we're having some clean slate 12:30 right here if you guys can.